How do you diffuse problems and prevent trouble? Welcome to Tea at Taxevity, where you get insights from insiders, our many clients and friends. I'm Pramod Sharma, your actuary at Taxevity. I help people who care about sustainable financial independence harness the power of life and health insurance. Our guest is Marcel Strigberger. Marcel, what do you do when you're not being interviewed?
Pramod, I practice law, primarily family law and divorce, and personal injury. So people don't watch where they're going, I suppose, or they can't get along with one another. I try to resolve their problems, their disputes, with minimal friction, minimal confrontation, and as economically as possible.
Mm-hmm. And you have a number of ways that people can get better at dealing with problems and actually avoiding them. Let's address a few of them. The first one is you talk about checking your ego at the door. What do you mean by that?
That's the crux. People can be arrogant, have a chip on their shoulder, so to speak, for one reason or other, or they want to appear strong, they don't want to appear weak, so they can be put on a tough face, a tough front, and that's all part of ego. Very often problems happen or develop or flourish because people don't stop to talk to one another. They say, let me hear from the other person first. I'm not going to be the first to blink. And that's wrong. You should be the first to blink. There's a story about Abraham Lincoln going for a walk in Washington. There were one sidewalk. The street was very muddy. And his arch rival Douglas Stewart was approaching him, and they were both running for Congress, whatever. And there was only room on the sidewalk for one of them. And Stewart says something like, "I never step aside for a son of a bitch." And Lincoln said, "I always do." And Lincoln went and stepped into the mud.
Okay.
So I'm saying very often, it does not hurt to blink first, to be the first one, to let the other guy pass. It shows courage, and it shows integrity of character.
Mm-hmm. Now, ego is something that's tough to get over. Is that where bringing in people like lawyers actually helps, because they can help counsel someone to calm down a bit?
Lawyers, unfortunately, very often have ego problems themselves, bigger than most people. They take themselves too seriously. They're afraid to laugh. They're afraid to smile. I spoke to a judge once we had lunch together on a matter, and he was saying in judges' school they're told don't use humor because the litigants may not take you seriously. So basically, lawyers are not the best examples of people who check their egos at the door.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Another point that you mentioned is to ask for what you want.
Yeah.
That seems like an obvious one, but I gather there's an issue there?
There's an issue because people don't want to look silly. They figure if I ask, I probably may not get it. Why should I ask? And it's a very obvious way. You often, 95% of the time, you'll probably get what you want. There was a case where I had an estate problem and an issue for a client, and I went to see a specialist lawyer, and he said I can research it for $5,000. That'll cost me, because I've got to get the research. There's a book by Professor X and so on, and I've got to look into that, look into other things. Mm-hmm. And it occurred to me, I said thank you to the lawyer. Professor X was my law school professor back in trusts and wills 25 years earlier. Mm-hmm. I figured, why don't I get in touch with Professor X? And maybe he'll give me the answer. And I tracked him down in BC. I asked him the answer in a short email. He gave me the answer. Client saved $5,000. Mm-hmm. I asked for it. Hey, you never know. The worst he could have said is, I'm not going to do it yourself. The answer is no, look it up yourself. But people like to feel important and like to feel useful. So very often you'll get the answer. People will help you and give you what you want, more often than you think.
Okay. Another point you make is to ask questions and do not assume anything.
Very often people, again, are afraid to ask questions. They see something, especially in the field of medicine, with doctors and hospitals. Doctors' writing is illegible. Now they're using computers very often, but very often still many write. and nurses are afraid to ask, or interns or residents. I can't ask the head honcho anything. You don't ask the doctor anything. I'll look like an idiot.
Right.
And people get prescribed the wrong stuff, or the wrong things happen. I had a case once, not a case, an instance where my son was about 4 years old. I slammed the car door in his fingers. We were downtown. We were getting out by accident. It was one of these two-door cars. And we weren't far from sick kids. We shot over there quickly, and we thought he may have a broken finger, whatever. They put us into a waiting room, a cubicle, and then along comes a nurse with a machine, and it's got a hose on it, and she kicks us out of the room. And we say, why? She says, we don't, it's better you don't see this. I say, see what? She says, well, we're going to pump his stomach. I say, why would you want to pump his stomach? She says, isn't this the kid who swallowed the nickel? I said, no.
Oh.
I mean, we could have just left the room. She confused one another. We could have just left the room, and when they would have pumped the poor guy's stomach, who knows what would have happened, and it wouldn't have fixed his finger. Fortunately, his finger was, just a sprain or a bruise. It was fine. But I'm just saying, you can't assume that they're doing the right thing. They're in the right place. It's the right case. It's the right patient. It's the right anything. You have to be careful. It does not hurt to say, is this that? Please confirm. 10-4. Roger. Do you have it? Are we on the same page? And I find it crucial. You save a lot of trouble in life and problems if you ask questions. You don't assume.
You also talk about the power of apology.
Yeah. Probably gets us back to ego. I know I've had clients tell me, what we like about you is you're humble. And I don't mind, I guess maybe by saying that I may not be humble, but it's not supposed to come across that way.
You're humble, you're great, you're fantastic.
Put it this way, the client said I was humble. But the idea is, it's important to offer a sincere apology, and not only and giving an explanation isn't necessarily an apology. Some people say, "Well, let me tell you what happened." That's not an apology. This is why it went wrong. That's not an apology. First, say,
right.
"I'm sorry." And then the second thing is you need an apology with action. Once you've apologized, fix it, reimburse the person. Do something to fix it, to make it right. So don't just apologize. So apologize, mean it, and follow it up with action to correct the problem you've created. Okay, Mark Twain said, always acknowledge a fault. This will throw those in authority off their guard and give you an opportunity to commit more.
That sounds like Mark Twain.
Mark Twain, yeah, but it's true. You get on with life, but give it sincerely. And we stayed at a hotel once in Florida, and everything went wrong. The food, they didn't clean the room, they didn't change the bedding, just whatever it was. Business doesn't do stuff. And the manager came by 3-4 times. Said, "Sorry, sir, we apologize. Sorry, sir, we apologize." And there was a restaurant there called the Lemon Tree, and things went wrong there too. And they didn't give us what we asked for. It was burnt. It was something wrong with it a few times. And again, they also apologized, same place, but never did anything about it. They wouldn't replace stuff. The room wasn't clean, whatever.
Oh.
So I guess I coined that phrase, an apology, a lemon tree apology. It's just, hey, we're sorry, but do they mean it? What are they doing about it? Nothing. So that's not a true apology. Apology, again, has to be sincere and followed up with action to correct the problem you've created, the fault you've created.
Would you ever make an apology when you're right?
When you're right.
I'm thinking in terms of, say you're trying to resolve a dispute.
Yeah.
And it's not, and maybe just conceding is the way to get things done.
Yes, in the appropriate circumstances, definitely. The goal is to create peace, to create a resolution of a problem, and if it means you backing down for some reason, saying, you might phrase it differently. You might say, I see it one way, you see it that way. However, what we want to achieve is this, and I agree with you. I won't concern myself about the fact that the way I see it right now, we'll do it your way. That's fine. So I mean, if that's an apology, I guess you can call it that. Yeah, because the overall thing is what's your goal? The goal you want to achieve. The goal you may want to achieve very often is resolve a case, and so on. Just give it to them. Very often you can give things up. It doesn't hurt you. It's like when you're driving a car and somebody cuts you off. There are people who say, "Oh yeah," and they'll chase the person. They'll cut him off. Mm-hmm. And hey, okay, they were right. They were cut off, But that's road rage, but the tack to take is fine. I'll never see this person again. It's not a sign of weakness if I don't chase him and smash into him or cut him off. He doesn't know who I am. I'm anonymous to him. Goodbye,
Right.
nice knowing you, or nice not knowing you. And so that's a case where you're right, you don't do anything about it. You can see it, go ahead. I'm not going to, or a parking spot. If I'll never zoom to kill myself or somebody else trying to grab a parking spot if I see somebody else heading for it. I say, fine, go ahead, be my guest, take it. So and it makes me feel better. I don't, there's no stress. I say,
Yes.
go ahead, please, take it.
You're being generous in that situation.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
You also talk about the importance of using humor. That one you need to explain, because I don't see humor as a good tool in some of these situations.
Well, there are numerous benefits of humor. First, it breaks the ice, creates rapport. It's good for your health. When you laugh, you create endorphins. Endorphins have a morphine-like effect to reduce pain if you have it. It reduces your blood pressure. There was a study done at the Montreal Heart Institute where people who had a heart attack, if they laugh 15 minutes a day, after that, there's a 30 to 40% less chance of getting a second heart attack. So that's the benefit of laughter. There was a study done in Harvard, a study done which showed that 600 major companies in the US, high up on the list, why they would hire somebody, an executive, having a sense of humor was number one. One or two was right up on top of the list, more important than their education, their college degrees. They wanted somebody who, they figured if they hire somebody with a sense of humor, they can get along with that person can get along with other staff and people they do business with. So, and I find it crucial in my practice, my law practice, indispensable. Use humor, you get along with people, and they enjoy sitting in my office. There's tension, family law, divorce in this type of case, but we giggle a bit, we'll laugh, we'll make, not a matter of making light, just softening a situation. And with a person with some humor, you can detach yourself from the immediate crisis, and you realize, hey, I'm here, it's there, now let's deal with it. It's not all encompassing. It's not going to wrap around me and do me under.
Isn't there a risk that you may be seen as less professional if you're using humor?
There's a natural tendency in our society, in any society, to see as humor. We get mixed messages. You'll hear people say, we have to lighten up, yet they'll say, don't be silly. We need humor now, but don't be a child. Grow up. You have sort of a push me, pull me attitude very often towards it. I was telling you the one about the judge who said judges in judges school are saying avoid humor because the litigants may think you're not serious. I had a case once, I was doing some criminal law then, where we agreed, with the Crown Attorney and I agreed that my client he'd plead guilty, he'd get a fine. So in the court brief, in the Crown brief, the Crown wrote down, a fine is fine. And then we both giggled, and he says, no, somebody, my boss or my super, may look at that, they think I'm not being serious. So he erased that, he just wrote fine, but he had a problem with it. But overall, I've told you about the Harvard study. There was a study done as well, Harlequin Books, they do these love stories and so on. And they did a survey, and they found that in the United States, 65% of women, the attribute they found most sexual attribute, most sexy in a man, most valuable, was a man's sense of humor as far as sexuality and so on. They found a man, and in Canada was 70% of the women interviewed. So
wow.
I'm saying even in that area, people like somebody with a sense of humor. So it's valuable. But people grow up with these mixed messages, and they're afraid. They're these resistors. Kids will laugh. You know how many times children will laugh or smile 400 times a day on the average. 400. Adults, you know what it gets down to? 15.
Oh, I was thinking it might be 100.
No, 400 for adults.
400 for children.
For children, and 15 for, so it's dramatically less.
Wow.
Because it sort of gets beaten out of you, not necessarily physically, but you're concerned. Am I gonna bomb? Will I be frowned on? Is it politically incorrect? Is it sexual harassment? There's stories about clowns, the story behind the clown that represent castration. I mean, is that? So there are 8, 9, 10, many reasons why people may be afraid to use humor.
Mm-hmm. But then isn't it safer, if you're not sure of whether you should use humor, isn't it safer to not use humor?
It is, but then there's, I guess, an expression, a ship in a harbor is safe, but that's not what a ship is for. Mm-hmm. Yes, however, no one will ever fault you if you use humor about yourself.
Okay.
So you can say something if you can't lift something. Well, I never said I was Samson, or if there's something you don't, you may not understand some math or some biomedical matters or whatever.
Right.
You may say, well, I never said I was Einstein. Mm-hmm. And so on. Or if your English isn't 100%, you stumble and fumble. You say, well, I never said I was Churchill.
Okay.
You see what I mean? No one's gonna say, hey, well, they'll laugh because you're making fun of yourself. You are always the best target yourself. Okay. You can always that's sort of you can always start with that, and it's safe. That's the safest. Just do it about yourself, and maybe your own group, yourself. As long as you're not doing it to others, no one's going to care if you're saying I'm not Einstein, I'm not Churchill, I'm not Samson, and so on.
Mm-hmm. What's your key message for the people watching today?
Key messages: start with a good heart, really want to avoid trouble, prevent diffuse problems, avoid trouble, and not be afraid to use humor. If you do it with a good heart, good intentions, it'll come off. It's natural. It'll just practice and see how it goes. There are enough problems in the world, strife. It doesn't have to happen. Avoid trouble by asking questions, by looking around and just asking yourself, what can I change to make it happen, to diffuse problems and certainly avoid trouble.
Mm-hmm. What's the best way for people to reach you?
I'm old-fashioned. I like the telephone.
The telephone?
Emails, I find can be trouble sometime.
Okay.
I do have an email, marcel@striglaw.com, mm-hmm. and my phone number, 905-731-0496.
Mm-hmm. You also have a humor blog, do you not?
Yes, legalhumor.com. And that's my legal humor website. There are humor blogs, and we give talks on humor, how to use humor safely. And that's legal humor, HUMOUR or HUMOR.
Oh, both the Canadian and American
Yeah, we
spells.
have both. Yeah, so the Americans can find us too.
Great. Thanks very much for dropping by.
Pleasure, Pramod.
Thanks for joining us for Tea at Taxevity. The Taxevity Insurance Advisory helps you understand insurance and bridges gaps in your coverage. There's no premium for peace of mind. How healthy is your insurance?